Hey y'all, it's Brittany and welcome back. So in this week's installment of True Crime and Makeup, we are going to be talking about the story of Crystal Rogers, but not just Crystal Rogers herself. This story also entails tragedy going through her entire family, not just due to what happened to her, but also what happened to her aunt, her father. We'll get into all of that. And this also involves two brothers, one who's a police officer, and their 80-year-old grandmother. So if you want to hear all about this crazy story about Crystal Rogers and her family, make sure you stay tuned. So to all of my Bizzie Bees that are returning, shout out to y'all. Y'all have been super active in those comments, liking, watching. I really do appreciate it. So hey sis, hey sir. And for those of you who are just finding my channel, make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss any of these stories that I have for True Crime and Makeup. I also do snapped in skincare or clean skin, dirty deeds, and a bunch of other stuff, luxury fragrances, all that good stuff. So make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on anything. Also, make sure you hit that notification bell so that you are notified every time I post new content. But yeah, let's get started into this story, y'all. So the story of Crystal Rogers was actually suggested to me by one of you. So shout out to y'all for keeping those suggestions coming in. I get them on a daily basis, so I greatly appreciate you guys helping a sister out. This started off as what I thought was a straightforward story from a small town, and I got dragged into rabbit holes. Nonetheless, this ended up being such a sad story because this rabbit hole was just tragedy for the entire family, more than once, more than twice. So let's hop right into the story of Crystal Rogers and her family. So Crystal Rogers was born in 1980, and she was born in Bardstown, Kentucky. And one of the rabbit holes that I found, but I didn't continue down it, was there's been a bunch of stuff that's been happening in Bardstown that's just alarming, to say the least. But that's another story for another day. But she was born in Bardstown, Kentucky, and everyone that knew her said that she was a very passionate, but, kind. And she was also very shy, but she was a sweet girl and a sweet woman as well. She ended up marrying a man by the name of Keith Rogers, and they ended up having 4 children together. After a while, things started to take a turn for the worse, and they decided to separate, and essentially they were planning on divorcing. Now, while they were separated, Crystal started dating a man by the name of Brooks Houck, and they ended up dating for several years, and they actually had a son together. So Crystal has a total now of 5 children. Now, Crystal and Brooks also worked together managing rental properties as well. So the relationship was great for a while, but they started having trouble in the relationship around 2015. So on July 3rd of 2015, Crystal sends a text to one of her friends, and she's basically saying, although they are having trouble in the relationship, they're still trying to make it work. So that night, she texts her friend like, girl, we finally have a night without the kids. We're gonna enjoy this night and we get to kind of relax with each other, that kind of thing. And, she also mentioned that following day, which was the 4th of July, they were planning on going to his family's farm to spend the day for the holiday. Now, the 4th of July rolls around and nobody in Crystal's family hears from her. They've called her, they text her, and she's not responding. And she's not answering. So, at first they're like, okay, it's the holiday. Give her some time to at least, respond back to the text or get back or get around to calling, once she gets back from Brooks's family's farm. They still don't hear anything from her. Now, the next day after that, so the 5th of July, Crystal's car was found with the key still in the ignition and a flat tire. Now, when police look inside of her car, they find all of her belongings, including her purse, her cell phone, her makeup, like all the stuff that was normally in a woman's car or in her purse was just kind of strewn all over the car. So that very same day, Crystal's family reported her missing. Now, interestingly enough, even though she was a full adult, the police got to work right away. And I don't know if it was because at that point she had been missing since technically the 3rd. The last time anybody heard from her was that night of the 3rd. So I don't know if that's why police moved so quickly and they didn't give the family the stipulation of the 48-hour wait that they typically give missing adult cases. But nonetheless, they got it together real quick and hopped on the significant other train and immediately started to look into Brooks. Now, when police talked to Brooks initially, he said that he, Crystal, and their son, their 2 or 3-year-old son at the time, they went to the family farm on the night of the 3rd. Now, Crystal had mentioned to her friends that they were supposed to go on the 4th, but Brooks told the police that they went on the 3rd, and they went and they fed the animals at the farm, and then they came back home early that evening. Now, he said when they got home early that evening, they had dinner, and he went to bed early, and according to him, Crystal was still up and playing a game on her phone or doing something on the phone when he went to sleep. He then said that when he woke up the next day, Crystal was gone, just up and vanished. Now, he also told police that Crystal would do this often. He said that she would, leave, just up and leave to go party with her sisters or go party with her friends, which didn't make sense to the family whatsoever. None of that really seemed to make any sense to Crystal's family or her friends for that matter, because all of her friends were also parents. So her and her friends were just up and leaving their kids randomly to go party. Like, it wasn't making any sense. Make that make sense. So the police asked him, well, if you had your son and y'all all 3 went to your family's farm, why did Crystal text her friend and say, we kid free for the night, I'm about to relax with my man, basically, but you're saying that you took your son to the farm? And he just plays it off and he's like, I don't know why she would say something like that, but we had my son. Even after he talked to the police and all this happened and his, girlfriend of several years went missing, he didn't even bother to look for her. Like, no effort was made to locate Crystal on Brooks' behalf whatsoever. And I think the police really questioned him on that, but his response was like, I tried to call her the next day to see where she was, what was going on, and she didn't answer. And that was all he did. And he also really had no reaction when they found her car abandoned. Like, it just was not something that was important to him. And her family also confirmed this as well. They said that he never bothered to reach out to the family in any way to see how he could help, or, he never showed any interest in helping the family out or any of that. I look like Spot the dog. Now, about 4 days after Crystal has now been missing, on July 8th, the police talk to Brooks once again. They bring him back in and they want to talk to him and question him again. Now, this time when they chat with him, he's again pretty evasive and doesn't provide any information that is of any help to the investigation or the search for Crystal. But while he is in the interrogation room, he gets a phone call from his brother, Nick. Now, Nick works for the police department that's questioning him. He is a police officer. And Nick and Brooks have a conversation briefly. And after that conversation ended and Brooks hung up the phone with his brother, Brooks stopped communicating completely with police. He had nothing else to say. He was done talking. What did his brother say to him on that phone call? We don't know. Now, after this phone call from his brother, he meets his brother at the family farm that very same night. Now, they know this because there is security camera footage of them meeting at his family's farm. And no one knows what they were doing that night at the farm. They could see kind of them pulling in, and they can see their vehicles and all of that stuff. And they could see that they left at the same time as well. But no one can see what they were doing on the actual farm. When police question them about this, meetup gathering of just the two brothers at their family farm, they both have no idea what the police are talking about. They weren't doing anything. No clue what you're talking about, sir. The very next day, Brooks decides that he's gonna try to clear his name by calling in to Nancy Grace. Now, my true crimers, y'all know how that went. Y'all know that if a potential suspect, if Nancy Grace has any inkling that you're guilty, this conversation is not going to go well. And it did not go well. Let's just say he didn't walk away any more vindicated than he did before he called Nancy Grace. This very same day, Brooks' brother Nick was testifying in front of the grand jury. He basically said he didn't know anything. If he knew anything, he would have already given that to his, fellow comrades. And there was nothing for him to tell because he didn't know anything. They also took Nick's police cruiser and they processed it for any evidence that may be present. So more to come on that. So a week after this, the police bring Nick in and they talk to Nick. And they want to know, what is going on? Did your brother ever talk to you about his relationship? Did your brother ever talk to you about anything else that may have happened before or after the event of, Crystal going missing? They also wanted to talk to him about the phone call that he made to his brother while his brother was being talked to or interrogated. He claims that his brother never talked to him about his relationship. That's just not something that his brother talked to him about. He also claimed that he has no recollection of the conversation that he had when he called his brother during the interrogation. Nick did agree to come in and take a polygraph on 7/20. So that was almost 2 weeks after he was being interrogated. Now, when 7/20 rolled around, Nick was nowhere to be found. Also, when they tried to reach Nick to find out why he didn't show up for the interrogation and the polygraph, he just refused to come in. He refused to take the polygraph. He changed his mind, I guess. It wasn't happening. Now, mind you, this man is a police officer. He works where he's doing all of this. Now, his brother Brooks did come in and take the polygraph, and his results came back to be inconclusive. Police were able to obtain security footage from the Hawk family farm, and they were able to confirm that they saw Crystal arrive at the family farm. And they confirmed that that was the last sighting of Crystal Rogers which was arriving. I'm clearly saying arriving because they did not see her leaving the family farm. What they saw was Brooks leaving the family farm, but not with Crystal. Police also don't see their son coming or leaving the family farm. So that kind of just establishes that Brooks was lying about all three of them going to the family farm on the 3rd because, I mean, they have concrete evidence that the kid was not with them. Now, Brooks had also told police that they had gotten home early that evening on the 3rd, but the evidence actually showed in the video that he left the farm around midnight, which is definitely not early evening. Although we know that they have the footage that shows the two brothers arriving to the farm on, I think it was the 8th, together, and clearly they were meeting as planned prior to them getting there. Nick had tried to say, oh no, we just happened to both be there at the same time, which made absolutely no sense. And so back to Nick's cruiser. So police, again, they took his police cruiser and they processed it for any possible evidence in the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. When they process it, they find that there is evidence of bodily fluids in Nick's trunk. Neighbors also told police that they saw Nick moving something out of his trunk into a family member's car. Now again, police asked Nick about this, and of course, he just plays dumb. He pretends that he has no clue what the police are talking about. And when he brought his butt back to work, he was forced to take a polygraph. And guess what? He was found to be deceptive when he was asked about if he knew what happened to Crystal, what her whereabouts were. He lied. And of course, while all of this is going on, the family is trying to hold it together. So they're organizing searches. They're looking in the area where the car was found, anything that can provide some additional evidence or insight into where Crystal is. And they find nothing. 2 months later, on September 9th, Nick was suspended for not cooperating with his fellow police officers. And then a little over a month later, Sir Nick was actually fired for interfering with the police investigation. And the very same day that Nick got fired, the police announced that Brooks was the #1 suspect in the disappearance of his longtime girlfriend, Crystal Rogers. They also announced that she was now presumed dead. So it wasn't a disappearance case anymore. This was now a homicide case. Now, shortly after that, Brooks started selling off pieces of his real estate, and it just felt like he was trying to get as much money as he could, as quickly as he could, so that he could get out of town. I mean, he was selling well below market value for these properties. So it just didn't seem right. And meanwhile, Crystal's parents, who are at this point taking care of 3 of their 5 children that she had, they're trying to continue to conduct searches. They're trying to, keep her name in the media because they're still actively looking for their daughter. The family was also fighting to get custody of Brooks and Crystal's son because obviously they think that Brooks has something to do with the disappearance of that boy's mom. Now, randomly, a person by the name of Danny Singleton was actually arrested in connection with the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. And this arrest took place in November of 2015, November 16th. And he was arrested on 38 counts of perjury. So apparently he had testified and did a whole bunch of lying. Now, Danny just so happened to be Brooks's longtime employee, and basically he was his right-hand man. But Danny ended up getting and serving an 8-month sentence for perjury. They had also brought in the Hawks brothers' 82-year-old grandmother. Why, you say? Because she was the owner of a vehicle that was said to have been involved in the disappearance of Crystal Rogers. Now, this vehicle was seen on security footage the night that Crystal actually disappeared from the Hawk family farm. And what happened was, right after Crystal disappeared, Nick sold that white car. Grandma owned that car. Now, police were able to luckily locate that car and test it and process it for evidence. Now, when they brought Grandma in to testify about what happened to that car and the involvement of that car that she owned in the disappearance of Crystal Rogers, Grandma pled the fifth. So police ended up searching Grandma's property. They ended up searching Nick's property. They ended up searching the Hawk family farm and the farm that was next to their farm. But they found no new evidence. Now, unfortunately, Crystal's case is still a cold case. But this case brought me to the case of her aunt. Her aunt, who was her father Tommy's sister, she mysteriously vanished in a very similar fashion. Crystal's aunt's name was Frida Sherry Ballard, and she was born on August 6, 1959, and she was one of 6 children, and again, one of those 6 children were Crystal's father, Tommy. She also grew up in Bardstown, and she met a man by the name of Edsel Barnes Jr., or Eddie for short. And they actually married really young, and in 1978, Sherry ended up getting pregnant, and Eddie did not want to be a father. So on January 19th of 1979, Sherry went to go pick up her car from a local mechanic. And unfortunately, that was the last time that Sherry was ever seen or heard from. At that time, she was 8 months pregnant. So the family started to search for her, and they conducted searches to try to find her, before she was due to have her baby. The hope was that they would find her, she would have the baby, and everything would be fine. But eventually, instead of finding Sherry, they found Sherry's car in the Ohio River. And her purse was in that car, and so was a big rock on the gas pedal. Clearly, someone purposely put that car in the bottom of the Ohio River. Now, the police really felt like Eddie had something to do with Sherry's disappearance and the car being in the river, but they really had no evidence to actually link him to the occurrence. I'm gonna put on my lashes. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, so lashes are on. So 3 years later, Sherry's body was found on a farm, and she was found to have been shot and then buried afterwards. So at that point, Mr. Eddie Barnes was arrested for the murder of both Sherry and their unborn child. The trial was delayed quite a bit because they were trying to figure out, back then, how to treat the death or the murder of an unborn child. And in 1984, they finally decided that an unborn child is not considered a victim at that time. So they moved forward with just the case against Eddie Barnes for murdering Sherry, his wife. So during the trial, Eddie decides to say, well, I didn't actually kill her. I actually asked my friend to kill her, and I gave him the gun, and he did it. Now, his friend's name was George Allen Weir, and he had given him a gun, and he had also given him a ride to go and kill Sherry. So both men were convicted in the murder of Sherry Ballard Barnes. They both were sentenced to life without parole. And actually, Sherry's case is kind of what ended up creating an addition into the Kentucky Penal Code in 2004, stating that any unborn child that is killed during the time of a homicide being committed on an actual living mother, the mother, if she's pregnant, and the fetus also dies, that is double homicide. That is a victim. There are two victims in that crime. Now, that was the case of Crystal's aunt, Sherry, but it gets worse, y'all. Unfortunately, there was some bad news about her father as well, Tommy Ballard. Around fall of 2016, Tommy was telling his wife, whose also name was Sherry, just by chance, but he told his wife, Sherry, I feel like I'm being followed. I don't feel safe. I don't feel comfortable. And he even installed cameras around the house, but also in his car. But they kept pushing during all of this. They kept searching. They kept, trying to drum up interest in the media to help find their daughter, Crystal. They're also still, fighting for custody for Crystal's son that she has with Brooks. And, it's a tough fight, because the police don't really have enough evidence to say that Brooks committed the murder, the crime, whatever took place. So they can't really justify taking his son away from him at this point. But in November of 2016, Tommy with his grandson went out hunting. Not the grandson that was Brooks' son, but another grandson. They go out and they go hunting. They're in an open field, so they're not in the woods, but they are in a very familiar area. They hunt all the time. This is where they go all the time. They have on their orange safety vests to make sure that anybody else that is hunting at the very same time does not think that they're an animal moving through the tall grass or whatever the case may be. They can clearly be identified as actual humans that are also out there hunting as well. On this particular day, Tommy's grandson had forgotten something in the car, so he ran to the truck to go and retrieve whatever it was that he had forgotten, and he was coming right back to the spot where his grandfather was. Now, while this was going on, Tommy Ballard was shot and killed. Now, some people thought it was, maybe it was just a mistake. They were out there hunting. They're in an open field. There are no trees. They're in an open field. They have on bright orange vests, so you know that they're human. So with that being said, many people felt like the Houck brothers, Nick and Brooks, were involved, and they wanted to get rid of him because he was the one that was still driving all the searches, still driving the interest, still pushing the police to investigate. And a lot of people felt like they shot him to get rid of a problem. Okay, you guys, so this is the finished look. I am loving my hair. Sheba is out today, and she is in all her glory right now. Basking, sis. She is basking. And this is the final makeup. I love the look. I feel like it's very blushy but glowy, flushed but dark skin flushed, if that makes sense. So really loving the look. And yeah, that is the story of the Ballard family and Crystal Rogers. I think her story was last covered in 2018 by both Oxygen and Investigation Discovery. But as of right now, it's still a cold case. There's been, bodies found in this small town of Bardstown in Kentucky. But unfortunately, I don't know if it's actually fortunately or unfortunately, but none of them turned out to be Crystal's body. As of February in 2021, Crystal's mom, who was fighting and has been fighting forever for custody of Crystal and Brooks' son, she actually lost the custody battle and was actually banned from seeing her grandson just because there is so much bad blood between the two families. Obviously, they think that Brooks killed their daughter. So in order to just create the best environment for the child, they are not allowing Crystal's family to see their little boy. And it's so sad to hear, but I mean, you have to do what's best for the kids in those situations. As of 2021, the FBI has taken over the case, and they feel like they're very, very close to closing this case and getting justice for Crystal Rogers. They haven't released any information in terms of what information they have that makes them feel that way, but I'm just happy to hear that they're still actively working the case and they're close to solving it. Now, also, y'all, in 2018, Mr. Brooks got arrested for stealing roof shingles from a hardware store. I don't know what he planned on doing with those or why he was stealing them, but he got caught and he was arrested. And that is everything that I have on this story, y'all. That is the story of, you know, Crystal Rogers. And I'm really praying and hoping that her family finds some closure and justice very soon. I feel like it's just so close and it'll be there soon. So, you know, praying for that family. And I want to thank again you guys for giving me all of these great suggestions of stories that I think are just straightforward, and it turns me this way and that way and all the way around. I'm here for it, okay? So keep those suggestions coming. I appreciate them. Also, hop in the comments. Let me know what you thought about today's story. Let me know what you thought about today's look. Otherwise, y'all, make sure you subscribe if you have not already. You don't want to miss these looks. You don't want to miss Sheba. You don't want to miss any of this. And also, make sure you hit that notification bell when you subscribe so that you are notified when new videos get posted. And lastly, just make sure you like the video. It's another great form of interaction for me and my channel, and I greatly appreciate it, y'all. But otherwise, it's been fun. It's been real. And until next time, love you guys. Bye. Sheba says bye too.